So another thing that Donald Trump signed this week was some memoranda on the Keystone pipeline and the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Right. So basically, I mean, obviously the one that's we've heard the most about recently is definitely the Dakota Access Pipeline, the DAPL. We see it huge on social media. I mean, Shailene Woodley
Only
was
social media.
basically, yeah, the actual media networks have basically just completely blocked it out. They for like a few days they had it on there whenever Obama said, basically shut it down.
Yeah, whenever it was.
That was it.
Yeah, it was convenient for them.
Yeah, they gotta missed a lot of it.
Right.
But for people who don't know, so Dakota Access Pipeline's already 90% done, 1,100 miles. It's going to be coming from North Dakota, coming down through South Dakota, Iowa, and then going into Illinois, where it's going to meet up with a bunch of other pipelines, go to some refineries. So basically, the biggest opposition that people have had to it is really from Standing Rock, the Sioux tribe.
Right.
They've been protesting it since 2014 when it was first announced. It was already supposed to be done by now.
Right. And the reason they're protesting it is because it crosses, is it in Illinois that it crosses?
I don't know the exact site, but it's going to be traveling underneath the Missouri River.
Which is their only source of water.
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit north of where they're at. And so if there's a leak,
it's going
to get into the drinking water.
The environmental concern is the main concern.
Yeah.
So, and, here's the thing. Like, just for anybody that's confused as to whether or not this is going to happen, nobody's going to stop this. It's being funded
they aren't.
Insanely by everyone. And
was that Texas? I can't remember who's actually building it. Coincidentally, Trump does own stock in the place that's doing it.
I can't remember,
but lots
either,
of people do, and it's
going
to happen.
It's being funded by pretty much every world bank, so it's not going to get stopped. The question is, like, how do you move forward from this standoff between between the people that are there,
it's a legit concern,
the environmentalists and the tribes themselves,
and
then the companies. And I get it. Now, something that's interesting about it, and I would be interested in knowing if there has been a lawsuit filed against the federal government or the companies involved in the pipeline, only because
as far as I know, there hasn't. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but still.
Which, if not, it's interesting to me because based on what I found, and this could be wrong, I'll link to it, but what I found was that based on the Fort Laramie treaties of 1851 and 1868, which were basically the treaties where the government gets together with, I think it was like 7 Indian tribes, and says, this is your land, this is where it spans from, these are your reservations, whatnot. Based on those two, and those were set up in some way to, like, it was a compromise. The government wanted to complete the Oregon Trail, and the Indians were like, okay, we'll give you this, but here's the agreement that we're coming to. And in that treaty, the Sioux tribes' land included the east bank of the Missouri River. So if that's true, and if that still holds, it would be interesting to me in like how this all couldn't just be stopped with the lawsuit. Right. Look, this is our land. So
is the bank considered 20 feet underneath the bank?
Right. Yeah. No.
Well, technically, we're underneath your land. I mean, I don't know if that's the case or.
And that's
everything that I have read has basically said that it's not going through their land. That it comes close, but it's not going through anything that is considered their land.
But it is going under their only water source.
But it is going.
And therein lies the issue.
I went and coursed the entire Missouri River on Google Maps, and that bitch is long.
Yeah.
You're going to cross it at some point if you're trying to get from North Dakota to Illinois, the quickest route, unless you take a giant circle, in which case someone else is going to be upset that you're doing it.
Right.
I mean, they have a legitimate concern just because these things do leak.
Right.
7 years it's leaked. I think there's been 1,300 pipeline leaks. And they will say, like, oh, we get about 80% of it back.
When they leak on land.
When they leak on land, yeah. When they leak over rivers or any type of water where there's rushing and there's current, they're picking up about 30%,
right?
Which is like a lot of poison.
So, yeah. So the Sioux tribes do have a legitimate complaint and a legitimate concern. My thing, like, if you look at the economic benefit, like, step back from
that's where I'm coming from.
Step back from the tribes for a minute and look at the economic benefit. The DAPL creates about 1,200
Yeah,
construction jobs.
8,000 to 12,000
in
temporary construction jobs.
And Keystone is about 28,000.
Yeah. And like I said, I've got an issue with that temporary construction jobs because they do it every single time, and every construction job is temporary unless you're endlessly building and tearing it down.
Yeah.
There is an end game involved.
Now, the one interesting number that comes up is the 40 permanent jobs that it's gonna keep. I wouldn't mind I wouldn't mind there being a few more than 40.
Right. I say just post them up every 100 feet or so and just say this, like, all right, Gregory, take a fucking look at this. And if it starts leaking, you tell me.
This is your pipe. This is your piece of the pipeline. You keep your eye on it.
That's it. It's like football. This is your spot, man.
You can have 728 an hour.
But basically, so the biggest economic boon for it is going to be coming into North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
And why I think that's important is not because I have anything in common with North Dakota or I know anyone from North Dakota, but they used to have quite a few of these places that were refining or at least transporting the oil. And I think they had 197 or so. And because no one could have guessed that gas was going to plummet, cut 50% of their profits out of it, they've closed down about 100 of them. So they're hurting. They've had to dip into the rainy day fund. I think the last I checked, they have 25 million left. That's not a lot for a state to. They dipped. What was it four? I can't remember how much. 200 million or something.
Yeah.
So what they stand to benefit from this is it's pretty substantial. Basically, North Dakota is set to get 156 million in sales tax per year. That's a big deal. That's almost as much as they've had to take out just to shore up those losses. Mm-hmm. I think it's also important to point out that it's not enough, but of course, per year, 2 years, it makes it back. But they're not the only ones. North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Illinois are set to get 55 million in property taxes. Yeah. So, and I understand where they could get upset, where like, well, if that's our land, why come we're not making the property tax off of it?
Right.
I get that bit.
I don't have a problem. I think it kind of plays into the whole infrastructure thing.
It does.
The new deal, new square deal.
Well, construction workers have not had the work that they had in distant decades because we're not building anything.
I'm totally fine with all that. The one issue that I do have, two issues that I have with the story surrounding the DAPL is that there is not much of a story unless you're a social justice warrior, which we typically use as a bad term, but I think in this case is probably a good thing because the media doesn't cover this thing, and even through the protests and the police,
it's the police that are really that's what's
the police have
off.
Completely overstepped their ground there, shooting people in 12 to 20 degree weather with water cannons, which is
that's pretty inhumane, man. Like, that's a step across the line.
Pretty sure during the civil rights movement we kind of like checked that off the list as things we're not going back to that tactic.
That was degrading enough, and then the fact that
there wasn't a blizzard going on in those pictures. So
and come on, like let's be real. At some point, you get exposure. You are exposed to elements. Hypothermia sets in, and you die.
Yeah,
like maybe don't turn them into human popsicles.
Police shooting beanbags into crowds.
And the one lady got her arm blown off.
Right.
It's messed up.
Just like in the rest of America, the police need to figure it out. Just because you have the weaponry, just because you have the equipment, doesn't mean you always have to jump to it.
But we did all this cool training. Come on, man.
Right. Why can't I drive a tank down the street? Yeah, like you
they're not cardboard dudes. These are citizens.
Right.
You need to calm down.
It's not Call of Duty. You don't get to respawn, and neither does he. So just calm it down. And I'm not saying that
I'm not against arresting them. If they're trespassing, arrest them.
If they're really trespassing,
if they really
have
are.
legal grounds to do it. So
get them out of there. I mean, let's face it. I think we're both in agreement that
I don't think
fucking pipeline is getting built. It's gonna happen.
I don't think that I don't think that protesters should be violent towards police, and in the same respect, I don't think that police should be violent towards citizens or protesters or whatever. Whether or not you agree with their political ideology, you have a job to do, and the fact that you wear that badge should be important enough to know where the line is.
Exactly.
So you know,
I do not see it from the environmental standpoint. I don't. While there are leaks, we need to be vigilant on them. If they're not, people need to understand this is coming from the I always say Bracken. I think it's Bakken oil fields up in North Dakota, and they got this all from fracking. It's already done. They're doing it. Either they're going to get it out from this pipeline or they're going to ship it out on railway, which has twice the emissions from coal. It doesn't make sense to oppose this from an environmental standpoint.
Here's where what I wouldn't mind
Not if you drive a
seeing.
car, if you use electricity.
In my Brandon Stopic utopia.
I want to live there.
I'm like Ronald Reagan. I make up words. So here's what I wouldn't mind seeing though. Like I wouldn't mind the U.S. government and like these tribes or whoever, these companies getting together and coming to a compromise here. Like, okay, we're gonna route it under the Missouri River. We'll go this far underground so that if there is a leak, there's already some kind of barrier. And I wouldn't
use the thicker steel.
And
use
if there is
the
a
shut
leak,
valves.
some sort of agreement to where the responsible party, whether it's the company or whether it's the oversight, the government, makes sure that they have clean drinking water.
I got one. Add a clause that says that if it leaks within 1 mile of the riverbank, that immediately FEMA and all them start sending out help with fresh water and stuff, so that they have their water. The problem is the water supply. Put a safeguard in there that they're going to get safe water and then be done with it, because it's going to happen. They've sunk $4 billion into it, and it's done.
$3.7 billion. It's going to happen, and I don't disagree with you. I think
We're
that's probably
the good fight. It's like, no, like it's not. Gonna
I don't
happen.
have a problem with Keystone and DAPL as long as it's done ethically. So put that clause in there.
No, I agree.
Give those people that reassurance that everything's going to be taken care of on the off chance that something bad does happen, and then I think move forward with it, and that's
okay.
it.
I think we definitely agree on this one.
I do too.